You know how people always say that money shows someone's true colors? I didn't really believe that until a few weeks ago, when something as simple as a phone turned into a giant crack in my friendship. It all started on a Friday night. Me, my best friend Claire, and a couple of our other friends decided to go downtown for dinner and drinks. We've been friends since high school, the kind where you've seen each other cry over breakups, celebrate birthdays, even fight with your parents. Claire and I have always been close, even when life got messy. That night was supposed to be fun. I'd just gotten a new phone about a month earlier, the latest model, not cheap at all. I saved for months and traded in my old one to afford it. I'm not usually materialistic, but that phone was my baby. I used it for work, banking, photos, literally everything. We were at this crowded little bar after dinner, and Claire was already tipsy. She's always been a little clumsy when she drinks, and I usually laugh it off. But then she wanted to take a group selfie. "Give me your phone. Yours has the best camera," she said, snatching it out of my hand before I even answered. I told her to be careful, but she was already stretching her arm out. Next thing I know, she stumbles a little, someone bumps into her, and my phone goes flying. It hit the tile floor so hard I swear the sound made my stomach drop. I picked it up immediately, and the screen was shattered into spiderwebs. Not just a little crack, the whole thing was destroyed. The screen was black, unresponsive, completely dead. My heart sank. Claire just laughed nervously and went, "Oh my gosh, whoops, my bad," like it was nothing. I wasn't laughing. "Claire, it's broken. It won't even turn on." She shrugged, still smiling like she didn't get it. "It's just a phone, chill. You can get it fixed." That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to be as simple as I thought. I felt this pit in my stomach, but I told myself to stay calm. "No, Claire, that was a brand new phone. You broke it, you're going to have to replace it." Her smile dropped. "Wait, what? Are you serious?" And that's when everything started spiraling. Claire's face went from tipsy amusement to disbelief in a matter of seconds. She actually laughed at me, like I had just told her the world's dumbest joke. "You can't be serious. I'm not buying you a new phone. That's crazy," she said, waving her hands like I'd lost my mind. I was trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel my hands shaking. "Claire, you dropped it. You broke it. It's not just a crack, it's completely dead. I just bought that phone, and it wasn't cheap. You have to take responsibility." She rolled her eyes and downed the rest of her drink. "Accidents happen. It's not my fault someone bumped into me. You can't expect me to just cough up $1,000. My other friends were watching silently, like they wanted to disappear. Nobody was stepping in, and I felt like I was standing on a stage being humiliated. I picked up the phone again, as if staring at it would somehow undo the damage. But it was done. My whole life was on that thing, and now it was just a brick. "Claire, if you scratch someone's car by accident, you still pay to fix it. This is the same thing," I said firmly. She leaned closer, squinting at me like I was being dramatic. "You're really going to ruin the night over this?" I said I was sorry. It's not like I did it on purpose. Her tone, casual, dismissive, made me feel like I was the crazy one. But I knew I wasn't. "I'm not asking for anything extra. Just replace what you broke. That's basic respect," I told her. She laughed again, louder this time, and looked at our friends like she wanted backup. "Do you guys hear this? She actually wants me to buy her a whole new phone. Like I'm some kind of ATM." One of our friends, Mark, finally spoke. "Maybe just help her pay for the repair," he suggested weakly. But I already knew there was no repairing this. The phone was toast. And the more I pushed, the angrier Claire looked. She leaned back, crossing her arms. "You know what? If you're really going to make this a thing, then maybe you're not the friend I thought you were." My jaw dropped. I was the one being wronged, and somehow she was making herself the victim. That night, I left early, clutching my broken phone like a reminder of how fast things had shifted. I thought maybe she'd cool off and realize I was right. But the next day, she sent me a message that made my stomach twist. The next morning, I woke up still angry but trying to convince myself that maybe Claire would come around. Maybe she was drunk, embarrassed, defensive, whatever. We've been friends for years. Surely she'd realize that the right thing to do was replace the phone. But when I checked my old tablet, the only way I could get online since my phone was dead, I saw a text from her that made my blood run cold. It said, "I talked to some people last night, and honestly, you're being entitled. I'm not buying you a new phone. If you can't handle accidents, maybe you shouldn't bring expensive stuff out drinking. I'll give you like $100 for the screen repair, but that's it." Don't bring this up again. I must have reread it 10 times, each time feeling my jaw clench tighter. $100? The phone was worth almost 12 times that. And she was acting like it was my fault for having the phone on me in the first place. I typed out a long response, then deleted it. I didn't want to say something in anger that I couldn't take back. Finally, I just wrote, Claire, the phone is beyond repair. $100 won't cover it. You dropped it, you need to replace it. Please think about this. Her reply came within minutes. Wow, so you're really serious about this. Guess I was wrong about you. Good luck with your new phone, princess. Princess. That word burned. The thing is, I wasn't rich. I'm not spoiled. I'd been saving for months for that phone. I worked extra hours at my part-time job just to afford it. For her to brush it off like I was asking for diamonds felt like a slap in the face. For the next couple days, I didn't hear from her. I tried to distract myself by borrowing my brother's old phone, but it barely worked. Every time I went to send a message or scroll through pictures, I'd think about how that one careless moment had ruined something I worked so hard for. Finally, I decided to reach out again. I suggested we meet up for coffee, hoping to talk face-to-face and clear things up. I hated fighting with her, and I honestly thought maybe she just needed to see how serious I was. When we met, she looked annoyed from the second she sat down. No hi, no smile. Just arms crossed and a sigh. So what? You're still mad? She asked. Claire, I'm not mad. I just want you to take responsibility. You broke my phone. I can't afford another one right now. I need you to make this right, I said carefully. She shook her head. Do you even hear yourself? Phones get broken all the time. It's not the end of the world. And you're acting like I did it on purpose. That's not the point. The point is that you did it, not me. You grabbed it out of my hand. You dropped it. If it were reversed, I'd already have ordered you a new one. She leaned back, glaring. Yeah, well, not everyone has money lying around. You're acting like I should just hand you $1,000. Do you even realize how insane that sounds? I'm not asking for a gift. I'm asking you to replace what you broke. That's normal. That's what decent people do, I said, my voice rising despite myself. Her face twisted into something ugly I hadn't seen before. You know what? Maybe you shouldn't buy things you can't afford to replace. That's on you, not me. That sentence hit me like a punch to the gut. My throat tightened, and I had to fight back tears. I couldn't believe this was Claire, my best friend. The girl who once stayed up all night with me when my dog died, who I defended in countless arguments, who I trusted with everything. And now she was basically telling me I was stupid for even owning a phone. I stood up, heart pounding. If that's how you feel, then maybe we're not the friends I thought we were. She smirked. Actually smirked. Maybe not. I walked out of that coffee shop shaking, but still clinging to this tiny hope that she'd regret it later and apologize. Instead, 2 days later, I got a message that turned this whole thing into something much uglier than I ever expected. The message came late at night, and it wasn't just from Claire. It was from a group chat we were both in with some mutual friends. I opened it and saw that she had sent this long paragraph, basically dragging me through the mud. She wrote, So apparently, I'm a horrible friend because I won't buy a brand new $1,000 phone for someone who can't take care of their stuff. Just want everyone to know before she spins her little sob story. She's been harassing me nonstop about this. I offered money for repairs, but she wants me to go broke over her toy. Honestly, I think she's taking advantage of me. Not cool. My stomach dropped. She had just painted me as some kind of manipulative leech in front of half her friend group. I typed, deleted, and retyped about 10 different responses before finally writing. Claire, you grabbed my phone, dropped it, and destroyed it. I'm not harassing you. I'm asking you to replace what you broke. Stop twisting this. Within minutes, she replied. Oh my gosh, see what I mean? She won't let it go. Entitlement at its finest. And then, like clockwork, the group chat exploded. Some people stayed quiet, but a couple of our mutuals actually sided with her. One guy said, Yeah, accidents happen. Expecting a whole new phone is a bit much. Another said, Couldn't you just use insurance or something? I felt sick. My chest hurt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just about the phone anymore. It was about my reputation. She was making me out to be greedy and selfish, and people were actually believing her. I tried to defend myself. I didn't drop my phone. I didn't hand it over. She grabbed it without asking, and it's completely destroyed. This isn't about entitlement, it's about accountability. But it was like shouting into a storm. Claire had already poisoned the well. The next day, I found out she had been talking about it outside the group chat too. A friend from work texted me, "Hey, I heard about the phone thing. Hope you're okay." That's when I realized she was telling literally everyone she could. And she wasn't just twisting the story, she was outright lying. Saying I screamed at her in public, saying I threatened to sue her, which I never did, saying I was obsessed with money. I started getting paranoid. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was someone else who had heard her version of events. Every time I saw mutual friends hanging out without me, I wondered if they thought I was the villain. At one point, I actually considered just dropping it, just buying myself a new phone, even though it would wipe out my savings, just to end the drama. But then I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, furious at the thought of letting her get away with it. No, she had to take responsibility. So I did something I never thought I'd do to a friend. I called her mom. I didn't call her mom to tattle like a child. At least, that wasn't my intention. It was more like a last resort. Claire and I had been friends for so long that I'd known her family almost as well as my own. Her mom, Linda, always liked me, and I figured maybe she could help talk some sense into her daughter. I was shaking when I dialed the number. My brain kept screaming, "This is a bad idea," but my heart wouldn't let me just sit there and be slandered. When Linda picked up, she sounded cheerful at first. "Sweetheart, it's been so long, how are you?" The warmth in her voice almost broke me. I swallowed hard and said, "I'm okay. I'm sorry to call you out of the blue like this, but I don't really know what else to do. It's about Claire." Her tone shifted immediately. "What happened?" I told her everything. From the night at the bar to the coffee shop fight, to the group chat smear campaign. I didn't embellish, I didn't exaggerate. I just laid it all out as plainly as I could. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she sighed. "That sounds exactly like something she would do. She's been so stubborn lately. I'm sorry you've been dragged into it." I felt relief wash over me. Finally, someone who understood. "I'm not trying to make her look bad," I said quickly. "I just need her to see that this isn't about money. It's about doing the right thing. I worked so hard for that phone, and she just doesn't care." "I get it, sweetheart," Linda said. "Let me talk to her. I'll make sure she knows she can't treat her friends like this." When we hung up, I actually felt lighter. Maybe this was finally going to turn around. But the next day, when I checked my messages, I saw one from Claire that made my stomach drop. "Did you seriously call my mom? Are you kidding me? That is the most pathetic thing you've ever done." My hands trembled as I typed back. I didn't know what else to do. "You're lying about me to everyone, and you won't take responsibility." I thought maybe she could help you see reason. Her reply came almost instantly. "Reason? The only unreasonable person here is you. You embarrassed me. You dragged my family into this over a phone. I'm done with you." And then she blocked me. Blocked. After years of friendship. I sat there staring at the screen, numb. My hands were ice cold, my face hot. It was like being slapped in the dark. But it didn't end there. A few hours later, another message came in, this time from a different friend. It said, "Hey, just a heads up, Claire's saying you're stalking her now. She told people you called her family and threatened to ruin her life. You might want to watch out." I nearly dropped the phone. Stalking? Threatening? None of that was true, but it didn't matter. She was spinning the story faster than I could keep up. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a phone anymore. This was war. After that, things escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. The next week at work, one of my coworkers pulled me aside and asked quietly, "Are you okay? I heard you've been having some drama." My stomach nodded. "Where did you hear that?" She hesitated before saying, "Claire posted something on her story. I don't know the full details, but she didn't sound very nice." I borrowed a friend's phone to check, since I was blocked. And sure enough, there it was, a ranty post on Claire's Instagram story. Friendly PSA. If your friend demands thousands of dollars from you because you had an accident, and then goes crying to your mom when you won't pay up, maybe reconsider if they're actually your friend or just using you. Some people will literally try to ruin your life over nothing. She had tagged it with one of those passive-aggressive broken heart emojis. Even though she didn't say my name, everyone who knew us could connect the dots. And it worked. Suddenly, people I'd known for years started treating me differently. Conversations got awkward. Invites stopped coming in. I even overheard someone whispering at a party, "She's the one who's obsessed with money, right?" The isolation was crushing. All because Claire refused to admit she was wrong. I tried reaching out to mutual friends to explain my side. Some believed me, some didn't. But even the ones who believed me said the same thing. It's not worth it. Just drop it. Move on. But how was I supposed to move on when my reputation was being shredded? When people thought I was some greedy monster? The worst part was the nights. Lying awake, replaying every moment, every conversation, wondering if I should have just let it go. If maybe I was the problem. But then I'd remember the sound of my phone hitting the floor. The way Claire laughed it off. The way she smirked in the coffee shop. The way she twisted everything until I was the villain. No, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. One night, unable to sleep, I pulled out the dead phone. The screen was still shattered, but the body was intact. I turned it over in my hands, and that's when I noticed something I hadn't before, a tiny sticker on the case. A bar's logo. It must have stuck there when it hit the floor that night. And that gave me an idea. I knew the bar had security cameras. If I could get the footage from that night, I'd have proof. Proof that Claire grabbed my phone. Proof that she dropped it. Proof that I wasn't lying. The thought of confronting her with actual evidence made my heart race. But part of me hesitated. What if getting the footage made things worse? What if she spun that too? Still, I couldn't let it go. The next day, I walked into the bar, clutching the broken phone like a talisman, and asked to speak to the manager. I didn't know what to expect when I pushed open the heavy wooden door to that bar again. It was the middle of the afternoon, which made it feel weirdly hollow compared to the chaos of the night. Everything went wrong. The lights were dimmed, the tables half stacked on chairs, and the faint smell of bleach lingered in the air. I stood there for a second, holding my breath, gripping the cracked phone in my hand like it was proof of my own sanity. A couple of bartenders looked up from wiping down glasses. One of them, a tall guy with sandy hair pulled back in a bun, gave me a curious look. "Hey, we're not open until 5, he said. "I know," I blurted out, maybe a little too quickly. I need to talk to the manager." "Is she here?" He squinted at me, like he was trying to place my face. "Yeah, she's in the back." 1 second. While I waited, my heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. My palms were sweaty against the dead phone. I kept imagining how this could play out. Maybe they'd laugh at me. Maybe they'd say the footage was gone. Or worse, what if there was footage, but it didn't clearly show what happened? What if it looked like I dropped the phone myself? A minute later, the bartender reappeared, followed by a woman in her 40s with a clipboard tucked under her arm. She had sharp eyes, the kind that made me instantly straighten up. "I'm the manager," she said. "What's this about?" I swallowed hard. This might sound strange, but I was here a couple weeks ago with some friends. Something happened, and I think your security cameras might have caught it. I was hoping you could help me out." Her eyebrows lifted. "What kind of something?" I held up the dead phone. "My friend dropped my phone here. It broke. She's been telling everyone that it wasn't her fault, but I know it was. If I could just get the footage, I'd be able to prove it." Her expression didn't change, but I could tell she was skeptical. "We don't usually hand out security footage to customers. It's for liability, not personal disputes." My chest tightened. "I understand. I really need this. It's not just about the phone anymore. She's been spreading lies about me. People think I'm making it up. Please. I don't know what else to do." For a moment, she just studied me, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she sighed. "What night?" My heart jumped. It was Friday the 12th, around 10 or 11. She nodded slowly. "All right, I'll see if we still have the files. Come with me." I followed her through a door into a small office in the back. The air smelled faintly of old coffee and printer ink. A couple of monitors glowed on the desk, one showing the live feed of the empty bar. She sat down, clicked around for a bit, then pulled up a grid of security camera angles. "What time did you say?" "Closer to 11, I said quickly. She sped through some footage, then slowed it down as the bar filled with people. My stomach churned as I saw flashes of that night. Me and my friends squeezed into a corner booth, drinks in hand, laughing. My heart clenched seeing myself smiling, clueless about the storm that was coming. "There," I said, pointing to the moment Claire stood up, swaying slightly, phone in hand. The manager leaned closer. On the screen, it was grainy but clear enough. Claire reaching over, snatching my phone, stretching her arm out for the selfie. Then someone bumped into her shoulder. The phone slipped. It clattered to the ground, bouncing once before vanishing out of frame. Even without sound, I could feel the sickening moment my stomach dropped that night. "Can you rewind it a little?" I asked. She did. We watched again, slower. There was no mistaking it. Claire had grabbed my phone without asking. She wasn't shoved hard. It was just a light bump. She lost her grip because she was tipsy and careless. I let out a shaky breath. That's it. That's the proof. The manager gave me a look. I can't give you a copy of this, but I can confirm if anyone asks that your friend dropped the phone, not you. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Thank you, I said, my voice breaking. You don't know how much this means. She gave me a small nod, then added, for what it's worth, I've seen a lot of friendships fall apart in this place. Alcohol and pride, it's never a good mix. I walked out of the bar into the blinding sunlight, my mind racing. I had proof now. Actual, undeniable proof. But the question was, what was I going to do with it? Part of me wanted to march straight over to Claire's apartment, shove it in her face, and demand she apologize. Another part of me wanted to post about it everywhere she'd smeared me, to clear my name in front of everyone. But then there was the quiet, rational part of me that whispered, even if you prove her wrong, will it fix anything? Will you get your friend back? Or just humiliate her further? That thought lingered, gnawing at me. Later that night, I told one of our mutual friends, Jenna, about the footage. She was one of the few people who hadn't completely distanced herself from me. You actually have proof? She asked, her eyes wide. Yeah. The manager said she'd confirm it if needed. You can clearly see Claire grab it and drop it. No question. Jenna bit her lip. Honestly, I believe you. I always did. But if you go public with this, Claire is going to explode. She hates being called out. It'll just make things worse. I buried my face in my hands. So what am I supposed to do? Let her ruin me? Let everyone think I'm some greedy psycho? Jenna hesitated, then leaned in. What do you want more? To clear your name, or to save what's left of your friendship? That question haunted me for days. Because the truth was, I didn't even know anymore. One night, lying awake in the dark, I decided to send Claire one last message. I dug up her email, since she'd blocked me everywhere else. My hands shook as I typed. I went back to the bar. They have footage. It shows everything. How you grabbed my phone, how you dropped it. I didn't want it to come to this, but I can't keep letting you lie about me. I need you to make this right. Please, before it gets any worse. I stared at the screen for a long time before hitting send. And then I waited. Hours turned into a day. A day turned into two. No response. Then, on the third day, my phone buzzed with a new notification, an email from Claire. I opened it, heart hammering. Her reply was only 5 words long. Do what you have to. Her email sat there on the screen like it was glowing. 5 words, sharp enough to cut through my chest. Do what you have to. That was it. No apology, no defense, no attempt at reasoning. Just a dismissal. I read it over and over, the words shifting in my head like puzzle pieces. Did she mean it as a challenge? A dare? A threat? I couldn't tell. For a long time, I just sat there, staring blankly at the laptop screen. My room felt too quiet, too small. The ticking clock on my wall suddenly sounded like a hammer. My mind kept bouncing between 2 versions of her voice saying it. In one version, she sounded smug, like, go ahead, I don't care. In the other, she sounded defeated, like she was giving up. I couldn't decide which one hurt more. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Mostly, I wanted her to just care. For once. Instead, I grabbed my pillow and pressed it against my face until my chest ached. Over the next few days, I couldn't focus on anything. Work blurred together. My family kept asking if I was okay, and I just kept brushing them off. But inside, I was consumed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the footage in my head. Claire snatching the phone, dropping it, laughing it off. It was proof. It was validation. But it was also a grenade, and I knew if I pulled the pin, everything would explode. I met up with Jenna again, the only person who was still willing to listen without judgment. We sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop, steam curling off our mugs. So, she asked gently. Did she respond? I slid my laptop across the table, showing her the email. Jenna read it and sighed. That's cold. Cold, I echoed, my voice breaking. That's basically her saying she doesn't care if she loses me forever. That our friendship means nothing. After everything we've been through. She's stubborn, Jenna said carefully. You know how she is. Once she feels cornered, she digs in. I clench my fists under the table. Why does she get to dig in while I get branded as greedy? Why does she get to tell lies while I have to stay quiet? You don't have to stay quiet, Jenna reminded me. You have the footage. The footage. The one thing I kept circling back to. What do I do, Jenna? Post it online. Send it to everyone she lied to? Drag her into the ground? She hesitated, then said, "Would that make you feel better?" I stared down at my coffee, the steam fogging my glasses. I don't even know anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Claire, about our friendship, about the nights we stayed up whispering secrets, the time she made me laugh so hard I cried, the way we used to promise we'd always have each other's backs. And now here we were, over a phone, or maybe not over the phone at all. Maybe it was deeper than that, about respect, responsibility, pride. I opened my laptop again, pulled up the email, and typed a reply. "Claire, this doesn't have to end this way. I don't want to hurt you. I just want the truth. Please." But I didn't send it. I couldn't. She'd already made herself clear. Instead, I started writing a message to Mark, the guy who'd suggested I just ask her to pay for repairs that first night. He'd been quiet since then, not really taking sides. "Hey, can we talk? I want to show you something." He replied within the hour. "Sure. What's up?" We met at a diner the next day. I brought my laptop and showed him the footage. He leaned forward, watching intently, his face unreadable. When it ended, he sat back and rubbed his chin. "Well, damn. That's pretty clear." "So you believe me?" I asked, almost desperate. "Yeah. I mean, I always thought you were telling the truth. But seeing it, yeah, no question." A tiny bit of relief bloomed in my chest. "So what do? Do I show everyone?" Mark frowned. "Honestly, if you do, it'll just humiliate her. People will see the truth, yeah, but she'll hate you even more. You'll win the battle, but you'll lose the war." "I already lost the war," I whispered. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Then I guess you need to decide if you want justice or peace." Justice or peace. The words clung to me like a shadow. Over the next week, I noticed Claire getting bolder. Even though she never spoke to me directly, her posts online became sharper, little digs that everyone knew were aimed at me. Screenshots of luxury phones with captions like, "Some people think this is a personality." Memes about gold-digging friends. It felt like death by 1,000 cuts. Finally, I cracked. One night, after scrolling through yet another of her barbed posts, I opened my laptop and started writing. I drafted a long message to the group chat she'd trashed me in. I explained everything. I attached screenshots of our texts. And, at the bottom, I added a line. "If anyone doubts me, the bar has security footage confirming what happened." My hands trembled as I hovered over the send button. This was it, the point of no return. But just before I hit send, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I frowned and opened it. It was Claire. "I heard you went to the bar. If you use that footage, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Don't test me." My blood ran cold. She knew. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about proving who was right. This was about survival. The message hit my phone like a pebble against glass. Tiny, mean, precise. "I heard you went to the bar. If you use that footage, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Don't test me." No name. No emojis. No punctuation beyond that last period that felt heavier than it looked. But I knew it was Claire. The cadence was pure her. Those clipped little sentences that pretend to be calm while they stand on your windpipe. My fingers went cold. I set the phone down on the kitchen table like it might shock me if I held it any longer. The table was cluttered with normal things. Mail, a bowl of clementines, a dried ring where a coffee mug had sweated. Evidence that life had been trying to go on. I pressed both palms to the wood and watched my breath fog the black mirror of the screen. "What kind of person you really are." I could hear her voice saying it a dozen ways. Sly, pitying, triumphant. What else could she possibly mean? She'd already tossed around words like greedy and obsessed. She'd already told people I was harassing her. Was there another version of me out there she hadn't put on yet? A worse one? The kind of accusation you cannot wipe off once it sticks? I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my back watching the damp glow of streetlights crawl along the ceiling and tried to convince my lungs they were still allowed to work. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a lattice of possible futures. Claire telling new lies with old confidence. Mutual friends resharing her story with bland captions like, "Yikes," or "Wish people were kinder," my name traveling farther than I could run. At 3:17 a.m., I got up and did something embarrassingly practical. I opened a blank note and wrote a checklist. Screenshot everything, Timestamps. Bar manager's name plus hours. Who saw the footage? Jenna. Mark. Ask. Receipts. Phone purchase. Case. Taxes. Messages with Claire. Chronological. Keep calm. Write facts, not feelings. Then I stood at the sink and drank a full glass of water because I read somewhere that your body interprets hydration as safety. It didn't make me safe, but it gave my hands a job. By morning, my head felt packed with static. Jenna opened her door before I knocked twice. She had that look she gets when she's already decided to be on my side, the kind of steady that can hold other people's weight without wobbling. I handed her my phone and pointed to the screen. She read the message, her mouth flattening. That's a threat, she said. Not even a creative one. She's going to invent something worse, I said, my voice thin. I can feel it. Something you can't unhear. She has a talent for that. Jenna put my phone down and took my hands like we were about to dance, which almost made me laugh because nothing about me felt coordinated. Listen, if she escalates, you do two things. You document, and you protect yourself. That includes legally, if needed. I don't want to be the person who does legal, I said. I just wanted my friend to replace what she broke. I know, Jenna said softly. You asked for the lowest rung on the ladder. She's the one who wants to climb higher and push you off. I nodded, but the idea of legal put a metallic taste in my mouth. Court was for strangers who hit each other's cars and neighbors who stole fence lines, not for people who braided each other's hair on the floor of a dorm room. And yet here we were. I spent the afternoon doing the unglamorous work of self-defense. I pulled the receipt from my phone from my email and printed it. I found the bank statement where the payment posted and printed that, too. I took screenshots of Claire's most obvious posts and of the group chat where she turned me into a cautionary tale. I saved the bar manager's name and number and wrote the date of our conversation in big block letters, like I needed to see that a day existed when I was believed. I stacked everything in a cheap binder I bought on my lunch break and slid clear protectors over the pages. The plastic made a whispery sound that felt both silly and ceremonial. I labeled the spine with a piece of masking tape. Phone, Claire. It looked like a school project for a class I never wanted to take. Around dinner, my brother called to ask if I wanted to split a pizza and watch a movie. I told him I couldn't. He asked if I was okay, and I said yes, which was not the same as true. After we hung up, I warmed leftover pasta and ate it standing up, staring at the binder like it might blink. The next morning brought a different kind of chaos. A mutual friend posted a story I wish I could forget. It was one of those mile-long text blocks, white font on a black background, performatively weary. It started with "Since so many people are asking," no they weren't, and wove a tale so generous to Claire you could have used it as a blanket. My name wasn't in it, but the initials were obvious, and the phrases were familiar. Legal threats, extortion energy, stalking camera footage. I felt that old hot wash of humiliation rise up my neck. People love a narrative they can rehearse with their friends. It makes them feel like they're part of something together. I didn't reply. I added the screenshot to the binder, slid the protector over it, and kept going. By afternoon, Mark texted, "Diner? I'll buy pie." Mark is not a complicated person. He wanted apple pie and to tell me he was on my team without making me cry. We sat in a booth that smelled like syrup and old coffee. I showed him the bar's angle on my laptop, that grainy grid where our bodies turned into facts. He watched, his face impassive. When the phone slipped from Claire's hand and pinballed out of frame, he winced. "Yeah," he said. "No editorializing needed." "So what do?" I asked. "Show it to everyone like a parade? Or keep stacking paper until I can't see over it?" He tilted his plate, chasing the last slice of pie. "You do what makes you able to sleep. If that's a judge, it's a judge. If it's a mirror, it's a mirror. But choose one. The in-between is eating you." On my way home, I stepped into the bar like someone returning to a crime scene in daylight. The manager remembered me. She had that dry kindness of people who have watched enough nights in badly to be efficient about it. "I can't release footage," she said before I even asked. "Company policy. But I can put a statement on letterhead saying what I saw when I reviewed it. That it fell from your friend's hand after she took it from you." "That's enough," I said, my voice louder than the room required. "That's more than enough." I went back the next day with a polite email printed out for her to respond to. She did, in blue ink, writing exactly what she had promised. She dated it. She signed it. The signature looked like someone else's heartbeat. I slid the letter into the binder and felt, for the first time in weeks, like I was building something that might stand up on its own. That night, I drafted a message to Claire. Not a plea, not a performance, just facts. I have a statement from the bar. It confirms you took the phone and dropped it. I'm asking one last time for you to replace it. If you don't, I'll file in small claims. I don't want to, but I will. I sat with the message for an hour, then sent it and put my phone in another room so I wouldn't melt into it while waiting. When I checked later, she had replied with exactly what I had known she would. Do what you have to. I laughed, a sound that cracked in the middle. Okay, I said to my empty kitchen. I will. Filing turned out to be more boring than dramatic, which I guess is the point. You fill out forms with boxes that don't care if your hand shakes. You write numbers. You attach copies of proof. You pay a fee that is both too much and not enough. The clerk was kind in the way public servants are kind, patient, efficient, immune to your particular disaster because they have seen every flavor. She stamped a date across the top and said words like service and window and response. I nodded like I was in a documentary about someone braver. 2 days later, a process server sent me a photo of an envelope sticking out of Claire's mailbox like a white tongue. I stared at it until my eyes watered. Service makes everything real in a way your feelings never can. It says, "This is not a story anymore. This is a case." The next morning, the thread began. People who had not spoken to me in months found my number and tried on different tones. Scolding, concerned, theatrical. Is this really necessary? You're going to ruin her career. This is such a bad look. One even said, I just hate the legal system, as if I had invented it solely to inconvenience them on a Thursday. I answered what I could without turning into a spokesperson for my own life. I gave her months. I asked quietly. She went public first. This is the only place where facts matter more than volume. When I grew tired, I stopped replying. Not everything requires your counterpoint. I did one more practical thing that felt like admitting something to myself. I scheduled a single session with a therapist I'd found through my insurance portal at 1 a.m. the night before. It was a Tuesday, a lunchtime slot, a room with a fiddle leaf fig thriving in a corner and a box of tissues placed strategically within reach. I am not here to be told I'm right, I said at the start, before my body could betray me with tears. I just need to talk to someone who won't set the story on fire while I speak. The therapist nodded like she had heard that sentence in different outfits. I told her about the bar and the phone and the month of being misnamed in public until my own name felt like an accusation. I told her about the binder and the stamp date and the envelope in a mailbox. I told her that I was afraid of who Claire might turn me into next. You sound like someone who has been trying to earn safety from a person who withholds it, she said. The legal route is you choosing an external system because the internal one failed. That isn't cruelty. That's wisdom. It was the first time the word wisdom had appeared anywhere near this mess. It felt like finding a clean spoon in a drawer you thought was empty. The hearing date arrived on a paper that told me what time to be where. I circled it on a calendar the color of sea glass. Between now and then, days passed the way days do when you're waiting for something. Uneven, stretchy, a little unreal. I did regular life loudly and deliberately. I called my grandmother and listened to her describe the weather with such glamour you'd think she was narrating a travel show. I went for runs that were more about placing one foot and then the other than about distance. I made a pot of soup and labeled containers with painter's tape as if I were leaving care packages for a future me who would be hungry and too tired to chop onions. Not everything stayed quiet. Claire posted 2 more subtweets that were the kind of vague that might as well be a name tag. Imagine dragging a friend to court because your personality is purchase history and lesson learned. Some people would rather be right than be loved. The second one made something in me clench because there are times I have chosen being right over being kind, and I am not innocent of that sin. But this wasn't that. This was about the cost of facts after you've tried kindness and been mistaken for a doormat. I didn't respond. I ran a cloth over my kitchen counter and added the screenshots to the binder. Plastic side. Paper stacked. A week before the hearing, I ran into Linda at the farmer's market. The day was obvious about being pretty. Clean blue sky, the smell of strawberries pretending to be perfume. She was bent over a stand of tomatoes, tapping the tops with the pad of her finger like she was testing for a heartbeat. She looked up, and a complicated relief moved through her face. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. And I almost cried because no one had called me that in a tone that didn't feel like a pat on the head in a long time. We found a patch of quiet behind the potted herbs, next to a chalkboard that promised cilantro with 3 exclamation points. "I'm not taking sides," she said, and then immediately shook her head like she disliked the phrase even as she used it. "I am not allowed to take sides, is what I mean. But I want you to know I'm sorry." "You don't owe me that," I said, and then exhaled the truth I'd been holding like a thread between my teeth. But I wanted to hear it. "I raised a daughter who confuses sorry with danger," she said. "When she was 6, she blamed the wind for breaking a vase. When she was 16, she blamed the teacher for a missed deadline. I always wanted to protect her from shame, and I did it so hard I didn't let her build muscles for it. That is on me, not on you." Tears arrived obediently at the corners of my eyes. "I don't hate her," I said. "I hate how she is when she feels small." "Me too," she said quietly. "Whatever happens in there." She nodded as if the courthouse were at the end of the aisle past the carrots. "Don't let this teach you that asking for fairness makes you unkind. It doesn't." I nodded. I bought basil I did not need because it felt like a ritual, and we hugged, and I walked home with the sun on my arm and the basil perfuming my bag like an apology I could actually put in water. 2 nights before the hearing, I had the dream again. I was back in the bar, laughter echoing in the corners, lights doing that flattering flicker. Claire reached for my phone, and it transformed midair, glass into a bird with silver feathers. For a second, it hovered, stunning, then a shoulder brushed, and the bird fell. Feathers shattered. Everyone clapped like it was a show. I woke up with my jaw clenched so hard my molars ached. On the day before, Mark came over with a stack of printer paper and 3 highlighters like we were cramming for finals. We sat cross-legged on my rug and rehearsed the facts in plain language. "Don't over-explain," he said. "Over-explaining makes you sound like you're accounting for a ghost in the room no one else can see." We practiced sentences out loud until the sentences sounded like things a person could say without crying. He left me with a paper bag of pastries and a sticky note that said, "You've got this, past, present, future." I taped the note inside the binder. It looked like a tiny medal. The morning of, I woke up before my alarm and watched the room lighten like breath. I wore black pants and a soft blue sweater, the kind of blue that looks like you tried without trying too much. I put the binder in my tote bag, along with water, a granola bar, and a small container of almonds because practical snacks make me feel like I am my own parent. On my way out, I slipped the dead phone into the tote too, not because it would be useful, but because it was the totem of the whole thing, the bone of the story. The courthouse was not majestic. It was exactly what it needed to be, a beige building with glass doors that whooshed when people went in and out. Inside, the floor shone with that particular school wax shine. The security guard was surprisingly cheerful. He glanced at the binder, at my tote, at me. "Phones go in the tray," he said, then softened when I placed 2. One alive, one never again, on the plastic. "Rough day?" he asked. "Long month," I said. The hallway outside the small claims room smelled faintly of coffee and toner. People sat hunched over folders and talked to each other in urgent whispers. I recognized that posture, the human body curling to protect its facts. I picked a chair near the wall and put my bag on the seat beside me like a little moat. Claire arrived 9 minutes late, which I only know because the clock above the door was directly in my line of sight, and I had been counting the minute hand as a prayer. She wore a black blazer over a cream blouse. Her hair in a low bun, she probably practiced the night before until it looked like it took no practice. When our eyes met, there was a flicker. Not apology, not even anger. Something like awe that we had brought our pretend war into a room with a bench. She sat diagonally across the aisle from me, close enough that I could see the neatness of her eyeliner and the way her fingers tightened and released on the strap of her purse. We did not say hello. There are some words that would be lies even if they are grammatically correct. When they called our names, my legs were suddenly a novelty. We stood in front of a judge with eyes the color of dishwater and a tie that had tiny sailboats on it. He looked like the kind of person who tells dad jokes to himself while he microwaves leftovers. It made me feel oddly better. You want facts handled by someone who finds comfort in routine. He read the header of the file. "Property damage," he said. "Mobile phone." He glanced at us over the top of his glasses. "Let's keep this tidy. No speeches. Start with the events." I thought I would shake, but as soon as I began, my voice found the groove we'd sanded into it the night before. I told him about the bar and the stretch of Claire's arm, about the bump that bars are built to contain, about the phone that did not survive. I did not tell him about friendship or birthdays or how a stranger's shoulder can be the difference between a good night and a memory that sours in the mouth. I showed him the receipt and the bank line and the letter from the manager. I named the dates like stones across a creek. Claire went next. She was careful. She was good. She said the word accident 3 times in different tones, like it might do new tricks if she coaxed it. She told him I had declined her offer to pay for a repair. True, repairs could not resuscitate the dead. She said I had contacted her mom. True, I had. She gestured in the direction of my binder and said I was building a case, like it was a personality flaw. The judge did not nod. He wrote 2 small notes, neither legible from where I stood. Then he asked the only questions that mattered. Who had the phone in their hand when it fell? And did you take the phone, or was it handed to you? Claire paused after each, and in that pause I could hear every fork in our friendship that had ever led us to the word if. But pauses cannot change physics. I took it, she said softly. It was in my hand. The judge considered for a moment, then took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly, not because they were dirty, but because he was contemplating how to phrase what came next so 2 humans would hear it. When he put them back on, his voice was the same kind of plain as the bar manager's letter. Bars are crowded, he said. Crowds bump. If you take possession of someone else's property voluntarily in that environment, the risk is yours to manage. The plaintiff is not asking for pain and suffering. She is asking to be made whole for an item broken while in your control. He looked down, wrote the number, and then read it aloud with tax and court costs, his voice making the digits official in the way only certain rooms can. There was no gavel. There was a stamp sound, a thump of rubber on paper, and then we were done. The next case shuffled forward, a man in a fence line and a measuring tape that unspooled like a snake. In the hallway, the hum of fluorescent lights sounded like a chorus. Claire stood by the water fountain and stared at the paperwork like it might rearrange its words if she glared long enough. I never wanted it like this, I said, because it was true. She let out a small laugh that didn't have humor in it. You wanted me to kneel. I wanted you to say you dropped it, I said, and then to do what people do when they break something that isn't theirs. She looked up, and for a second the mask wasn't on right. I could see the person underneath, scared, proud, out of control of the story for the first time. You think you won, she said, but it wasn't a question. It was an accusation in the shape of a statement. There isn't a win, I said. There's a bill you could have paid with a sentence months ago. This, I held up my copy of the order, is the quiet that sentence could have bought us. She folded the paper in half, then in half again, edges aligning perfectly, as if precision could make it smaller. She slid it into her bag. You humiliated me. I put the truth somewhere your confidence couldn't smother it, I said, and I didn't like the sharpness in my own voice, but I didn't take it back. She turned and walked away, her shoes clicking evenly on tile. No slam, no curse, just distance. I watched her go until the corners swallowed her, then sat on the bench and let my shoulders drop 2 inches. Mark texted 3 words. How'd it go? I sent him a picture of the top half of the order with my name cropped out like I was protecting a witness. He responded with a confetti emoji and, a second later, pie? I typed yes and then closed my eyes for a minute, letting the tiredness come all the way in. The payment landed the next day in 2 portions, one labeled principal, one labeled costs. No note. The numbers sat in my banking app like tiny tombstones. Here lies the thing that should have been simple. Here lies the apology that never learned how to breathe. I did not announce it. I did not add a victory lap to my story. I sent a 1-word message to the group chat where she had first rewritten me. Resolved. Hearts bloomed under it. A gif of a person exhaling slid across the screen. Rachel messaged me privately. I'm sorry I didn't back you up sooner. I was scared of her. I wrote back, me too. It felt both petty and holy to put it in writing. You'd think the world would stitch itself back together overnight once the case part was done. It didn't. There were ripples. A mutual posted alongside disguised as a think piece about how we use institutions to punish instead of forgive. I didn't reply because I have learned that comments are rooms where people come to be seen, not to see. Another mutual I had braced myself to lose texted to ask if I wanted to grab coffee and talk about anything except phones. We talked about her new job and a bad haircut, and then, at the end, she said, "I knew," and I stayed silent. I said, "I know, and I'm trying not to keep score." We decided to see a movie together and then sit in the dark and not discuss plot holes, like an exercise. The quiet that followed was not total. There were still nights I woke at 3 a.m., feeling like I had swallowed a shout. There were still rooms where I scanned for Claire's silhouette and only breathed properly when I didn't find it. But the quiet had changed weight. It felt less like hiding and more like rest. One afternoon, I took the dead phone out of the drawer. The cracks on the glass looked like a map to somewhere I would not be traveling again. I considered throwing it away and then didn't. I put it back and closed the drawer gently, like letting a sleeping thing sleep. The day I ran into Claire again wasn't cinematic. No thunderstorm, no dramatic music. It was the grocery store, early evening, the air cold enough in the dairy aisle to make my forearms goosebump. We reached for the same brand of cereal in different flavors. Our hands stopped 6 inches from each other like opposite poles of a magnet. She looked smaller, not physically, just less inflated. She glanced at me, then at the shelf, and said in a voice that sounded almost like a truce, "They changed the recipe." "They did," I said, because they had, and because neutral sentences are sometimes the only ones possible. We stood there a moment, two people in front of boxes, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the urge to deliver a speech to get my life back. I already had my life. It was in my cart with the milk and the onions and the basil I had inexplicably kept alive on my windowsill. She shifted her weight. "My mom said you bought a new phone." "I did," I said. "It works." "Good." She swallowed, a tiny movement that somehow looked like effort. "I'm working on sorry," she said, eyes on the shelf label rather than my face. "In general, I mean. It's a hard word," I said. "Not cruel, just honest." She nodded once, quick. "I paid." She added in that too bright tone people use when they're trying to claim a virtue they don't actually feel. "You did," I said. "Thank you." We didn't hug. We didn't ask about each other's families. We didn't pretend this was a hinge we could swing back the other direction. She put the cereal in her basket and wheeled away. I stood still for a second, watching the fluorescent light frost the tops of boxes, then moved on too. That night, I heated soup from my freezer, the rosemary one that makes the kitchen smell like I know what I'm doing. I sent Jenna a photo of steam curling out of the bowl and typed, "Warm things, finally." She sent back 3 spoon emojis and then, because she knows me, "Proud of you for not narrating the silence." I fell asleep with my window cracked open to let in air that smelled faintly like rain. For once, my dream was not set in a bar. I dreamt I was walking across stepping stones in a shallow stream. Some stones were slick, some were sure. I put my foot down and then the other. I woke up thinking, oh, that is what this is. Not a victory. A crossing. If you want the moral before the ending. If you break something, fix it. If you hurt someone, say the word that feels expensive and pay the cost. And if someone keeps turning your honesty into entertainment, you are allowed to put your truth where their performance cannot reach. It isn't cruelty. It's care. Of yourself, of facts, of the part of you that gets very quiet when you are treated like you don't know what you saw. The hearing is done. The numbers moved. The binder sits on a shelf next to tax documents and warranties because the story belongs with boring things now, not front and center like a busker demanding coins. But one last scene remained, and I could feel it even as I tried not to make movies out of my life. The day after I saw Claire at the grocery store, an envelope arrived with the court's return stamp, the clerk's handwriting in blue across the bottom, satisfied. The word looked like a person standing up straight. I set the envelope on the table next to a bowl of clementines that had finally started to sweeten. I stared at the word until it stopped being letters and turned back into a feeling I recognized. Tired, yes, but also clear. I thought that would be the end, and maybe it should have been, but there was one more thing I couldn't shake. The bar. The tile. The sound the phone made when it hit, and didn't get back up. I hadn't walked past that place since the night everything spiderwebbed. So on a mild evening when the sky looked like it had been washed, I put on a jacket and let my feet carry me along the blocks that know my weight. The bar's door was propped with a rubber wedge. New stickers had colonized the glass. A band name, a charity run, a reminder to tip like you mean it. I didn't go in. I stood outside where the sidewalk dips a little and watched people move in and out of the warm yellow, their laughter soft at the edges from distance. It looked exactly the same. It felt like a set from a play I no longer had a part in. I took a breath, then another. I was about to turn away when the manager stepped out to shake a rag and looked up like she could feel someone thinking hard. "Hey you," she said, squinting. "You look less haunted." "I came to pay respect to the ghost," I said, and we both smiled at the same time, surprised to find it still possible. "You need anything?" she asked. "No," I said. "You already gave me the thing I needed." She nodded like she knew what I meant, and maybe she did. I walked home slower than I had come, counting porch lights like stars. When I got back, I put the dead phone on the table next to the envelope that said satisfied and took one photo, not for posting, just for myself. Proof, not for a courtroom, but for the small interior place that likes to rewrite history when it gets nervous. I labeled the photo done and filed it into an album called Ordinary so my phone would learn, in its own algorithmic way, that this belonged to the same category as soup and basil and light on a wall. I slept. I woke. The sun did what it always does, arrived like it hadn't been gone. I made coffee and didn't check my phone before the kettle finished. When I finally did, there was one message waiting, simple as a line on a page. "Tomorrow. Party at Leo's. You in? Jenna." I read it twice. Not because the words were complicated, but because something in me had been braced to choose between hiding and performing for so long that choosing show up felt like learning to write with my other hand. I typed "I'm in." Then I added, "No speeches this time." She replied with a laughing face and a thumbs up, and, a second later, "You earned a normal Friday." I put my phone face down and stood at the window while the morning warmed. Across the street, a kid kicked a soccer ball against a fence with the uncomplicated stubbornness of someone who believes repetition solves everything. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But I can do repetition. Get up, be kind, pay bills, call my grandmother, answer only the messages that deserve me. Keep soup in the freezer, keep the basil watered, keep the story where it belongs, in the past, documented, done. I pressed my palm flat against the glass and felt the cool travel into my skin. For months, the words "do what you have to" had sounded like a dare thrown from a moving car. They sound different now in my head. They sound like permission I gave myself and then honored, step by careful step. But if I'm honest, if there's a place for honesty that doesn't ask for witnesses, I'll admit this. The part of me that loved Claire, the real her, not the performance, still aches sometimes. Grief doesn't need a funeral to be real. It can live in grocery aisles and old photos, and the way you know exactly how she takes her coffee without having to think. I let that ache sit beside me when it shows up. I don't feed it. I don't starve it. I let it be, and then I get on with the day. Because tomorrow there's a party, and I will stand in a kitchen and talk about nothing for a while, and it will be everything. Because the binder is on the shelf, and the envelope says satisfied, and the bird in my dream stays a phone now when it falls, because I caught it. Because the person I am, really am, is the one who put the truth where it could stand up, and then let herself walk away. And because there is still a final thing I have to do, a small one, but important. I pick up the dead phone, run my thumb over the shattered web, and whisper, not to it, not to Claire, not even to the past, but to my own steady heart. We're done. I set it back down, pick up my keys, and step out into air that smells like something I don't have to earn. The week after court felt strangely quiet. For months, I had lived inside the storm. Group chats exploding, strangers messaging, my name bouncing around like a rumor that wouldn't die. And then, after the judgment, after the payment hit my account in 2 neat installments labeled principal and costs, the noise just stopped. Claire never spoke to me again directly. No apology, no final jab, not even a sarcastic emoji. She folded her paperwork in that courtroom and walked out, and I think that was her way of closing the door. At first, the silence made me uneasy. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for her to post something dramatic, to accuse me of something new. But the longer it stayed quiet, the more I realized the other shoe wasn't coming. This was it. My friends slowly drifted back. Rachel texted an apology for not believing me sooner. Mark took me out for pie, tapping his fork against his plate like he was toasting me without words. Jenna, who'd been my anchor through all of it, sent me a single text that said, "Proud of you. You stood up straight. I bought a new phone. Nothing flashy, just solid." When the clerk offered to recycle my old one, I shook my head. "I'll keep it," I said. It felt strange to explain, But I needed the reminder, not of the fight, but of what pride and lies can cost. A month later, I ran into Claire at the grocery store. No fireworks, no shouting. Just two ex-friends in front of a wall of cereal. She looked at me, looked away, then muttered, "They changed the recipe." "Yeah," I said. "They did." That was all. She wheeled her cart down the aisle, and I let her go. And in that moment, I understood something. Closure doesn't always come as an apology. Sometimes it comes as a receipt stamped satisfied. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence. And sometimes it comes in the peace of knowing you told the truth, even when it cost you. Claire broke my phone, but in the end, she broke our friendship more. I can live without both. Because the truth is, I didn't lose, I learned. And that feels a lot like winning.